The day life ended, no one remembered when the planet had been named. It existed on Imperial star charts as a string of numbers and letters, a designation used only by administratum clerks who would never see its surface. To the Imperium, it was a resource world, nothing more, a place where bodies were produced the same way factories produced metal parts. The people who lived there did not speak of destiny or heroism. They spoke of shifts, quotas, and survival. The sky was always grey, stained by factory smoke and orbital traffic. The sun was a pale thing, barely visible through layers of pollution. Children learned early not to look up. There was nothing worth seeing. Aaron had lived his entire life without ever leaving his hive block. He woke each day to the sound of warning sirens that marked the start of another work cycle. He ate tasteless protein rations. He worked until his hands bled, repairing conveyor systems he did not understand, producing weapons he would never touch. When the shift ended, he slept in a narrow bunk surrounded by strangers who were too tired to speak. This was life. Not a good life, not a bad one, just life. And in the Imperium, that meant it could always become worse. Aaron was not special. He had no rare talent. He had no strong faith. He barely remembered the Emperor beyond faded murals peeling off factory walls, an armored god watching silently as people suffered beneath him. Sometimes Aaron wondered if the Emperor even knew this world existed. That question would soon be answered. The day everything ended began quietly. There was no warning, no dramatic speech, no prophecy, just a sudden silence. The machine stopped. Conveyor belts froze, lights flickered. The constant industrial roar that had filled Aaron's ears since childhood vanished. For the first time in his life, the factory was quiet. People looked at each other in confusion. Then the sirens began, not the shift alarms, but something deeper, louder, older. Sirens that had not been used in generations. The floor trembled. Dust fell from the ceiling. Someone screamed. Aaron ran with the others toward the factory exit, his heart pounding. Outside, the sky had changed. Massive shadows moved above the clouds, shapes so large they blocked out the light completely. Imperial warships, dozens of them. Their hulls were black and gold, covered in holy symbols and gun batteries the size of city towers. Thunder rolled as they descended into orbit, engines burning like artificial suns. People fell to their knees. Some prayed, some cried. Some understood immediately what this meant. Loudspeakers crackled across the city, mounted on spires and hab blocks, their voices distorted and cold. By decree of the High Lords of Terror, the voice announced, "This world is hereby conscripted for the defense of the Imperium." There was a pause, then the words that changed everything. All able-bodied citizens are to report for immediate enlistment in the Astra Militarum. The Astra Militarum, the Imperial Guard. Stories spread through the crowds like disease. Everyone had heard them. Entire regiments wiped out in hours. Soldiers thrown into battles they could not win. Worlds lost, abandoned, burned. No one volunteered. They did not have to. Arbits arrived first, then the guard recruiters, then the commissars, black coats, skull insignias, cold eyes. They moved through the streets methodically, dragging people from their homes, separating families, ignoring screams. Those who resisted were beaten. Those who ran were shot. Aaron tried to hide. He sealed his hab door and shut off the lights, holding his breath as heavy boots passed by. For a moment, he thought he might be spared. Then the door exploded inward. He was dragged into the street with dozens of others, men, women, teenagers barely old enough to understand what was happening. A guardsman shoved a lasgun into his hands. It was heavy, old, scratched and burned from previous wars. "Don't lose it," the soldier muttered. "You won't get another." Aaron looked down at the weapon, his hands shaking. He had never held something designed to kill. He wanted to ask questions. Where were they going? What training would they receive? When would they come back? But no one was listening. They were herded into transports like livestock, packed together so tightly it was hard to breathe. As the doors slammed shut, darkness swallowed them. The transport lifted off. Aaron felt the pressure in his chest as the ship rose into the sky. He thought of the factory, of his bunk, of the small, meaningless life he had lived. He would never see it again. Hours later, or days, he could not tell. The transport docked with one of the massive warships. The doors opened to reveal endless metal corridors filled with shouting officers and marching troops. This was not a rescue. This was a harvest. They were processed quickly. Names were taken and forgotten just as fast. Aaron became a number, a serial code. a uniform size. His hair was shaved, his clothes burned. He was given a flak vest that smelled of old blood and sweat. The man next to him whispered that it had belonged to someone who died screaming. No one corrected him. They were lined up in a vast chamber beneath a towering statue of the Emperor. The statue's eyes were carved deep, shadowed, unreadable. A commissar stepped forward. "You are guardsmen now," he said. "Your lives belong to the Emperor." He paused, letting the words sink in. "Do not expect glory. Do not expect survival. Expect only duty." A man near the front raised his hand. His voice trembled. "Sir, what are our chances?" The commissar drew his bolt pistol and shot the man in the head. The body collapsed at Aaron's feet. No one screamed. No one moved. "Your chances," the commissar said calmly, "are irrelevant." Servitors dragged the corpse away, leaving a dark smear on the floor. Aaron felt something inside him break, not loudly, not all at once, but quietly, like a slow tear. This was not an army. This was a machine that consumed people. That night, Aaron lay on a metal bunk surrounded by hundreds of others. The ship vibrated constantly, a reminder that they were traveling toward something unknown and hostile. Some men whispered prayers. Some sobbed quietly. Some stared at the ceiling with empty eyes. Aaron closed his own eyes and tried to imagine a future. He failed. For the first time, he understood the truth of the Imperium. It did not protect its people. It spent them. And this endless fear, this loss of self, this quiet erasure, was only the beginning. Because in the grim darkness of the far future, death is not the worst thing that can happen. Broken before the warship never slept. It groaned constantly, metal screaming against metal as it cut through the void. The sound crawled into the minds of the recruits and stayed there. Even in sleep, it was impossible to forget where they were, or where they were going. Aaron learned quickly that time no longer mattered. There were no days or nights aboard the transport, only cycles. Wake, march, eat, train, collapse, repeat. They were not given time to think. Thinking led to fear. Fear led to hesitation. Hesitation led to death, or worse. The first lesson of training was simple. You are already dead. The drill halls were vast chambers of steel and concrete, lit by harsh white lights that never dimmed. Thousands of recruits stood in uneven lines, wearing identical gray uniforms and flak vests that did little to stop real weapons. The air smelled of oil, sweat, and old blood. Officers walked between the ranks like hunters. Then came the commissars. They were impossible to miss. Long black coats, red sashes, skull symbols everywhere. Each one carried a bolt pistol, polished and clean, unlike everything else on the ship. Their presence changed the air. Fear deepened. Breathing slowed. No one dared to move. A commissar stepped onto a raised platform, his voice amplified across the hall. "You are not here to become heroes," he said. "You are here to obey." He paced slowly, letting his words sink in. The Imperium does not need brave men. It needs obedient ones. The recruits were ordered to run, not laps, not drills. Just run. They ran until their lungs burned, until legs gave out, until people collapsed on the floor, gasping, choking, crying. Those who fell were dragged to their feet and beaten. Those who could not stand were shot. No explanations were given. Aaron watched a young man collapse beside him. He looked no older than 16. His boots were too big. His hands shook uncontrollably. A commissar stopped in front of him. "Get up," the commissar ordered. The boy tried, failed, tried again. The bolt pistol fired once. The body hit the floor. Training continued. That was the moment Aaron understood the true purpose of this place. This was not about preparing soldiers for war. This was about removing weakness. And weakness meant humanity. Food was scarce and tasteless. Protein bricks stamped with Imperial symbols eaten cold. Water rationed carefully. Hunger became a constant companion, gnawing at the back of the mind. Sleep was worse. They slept in massive barracks, stacked in metal bunks 5 levels high. The lights never turned off completely. Screams echoed at night, sometimes from nightmares, sometimes from punishments. Aaron woke once to find a man missing from the bunk above him. No blood. No signs of struggle. In the morning, no one asked where he went. They learned quickly not to ask questions. Weapons training was brief and brutal. Lasguns were handed out with minimal instruction. Fire, reload. Fire again. No marksmanship lessons. "You will fire into the enemy mass," an officer explained. "Accuracy is irrelevant." Live fire drills were conducted with recruits running ahead of the shooters. Anyone hit was combat ineffective. Bodies were removed after the exercise ended. Commissars watched everything. One afternoon, a recruit whispered to Aaron while they waited in line, "I heard entire regiments die in their first hour," he said. "Just erased." Aaron did not respond. The commissar behind them did. The whispering recruit was shot for spreading defeatism. Aaron flinched when the shot rang out. The commissar noticed. He stepped closer. "You," he said, staring directly at Aaron. "Fear is natural, but showing it is treason." He leaned in close, his breath cold. "Learn to hide it." From that day on, Aaron learned to keep his face blank, emotionless, empty. Faith training followed. They were forced to kneel for hours beneath towering statues of the Emperor. Chaplains recited endless sermons about sacrifice, duty, and holy war. "You are nothing," they were told. "The Emperor is everything." Some recruits began to believe it. Others pretended. Those who resisted were taken away. Sometimes they returned, quiet, broken, staring into nothing. Sometimes they didn't. Aaron began to notice changes in himself. His thoughts grew slower, sharper, focused only on immediate survival. Memories of his old life faded. The factory, the bunk, the gray sky, they felt unreal now, like someone else's past. Pain became normal. Bruises, burns, broken fingers, no medical care unless the injury threatened immediate usefulness. "You heal or you die," an officer said. "Either outcome serves the Imperium." One night, a fight broke out in the barracks over food rations. Hunger drove men mad. Aaron watched as two recruits beat a third to death with their fists. The next morning, the survivors were praised for their aggression. Violence was rewarded. Compassion was punished. Weeks passed, or months. Aaron could no longer tell. Then came the first execution for retreat during a simulated assault drill. A squad was ordered to charge a fortified position. The defenses were overwhelming. The position was impossible to take. One squad hesitated, not retreated, just slowed. The commissar did not hesitate. He executed the entire squad, one by one, while the others were forced to watch. "Remember this," he said. "The enemy may kill you. I will ensure it." That night, Aaron dreamed of running. He woke up screaming. No one comforted him. By the end of training, fewer than half of the original recruits remained. They stood in formation, thinner, harder, quieter, eyes dull, faces scarred. They were soldiers now, not because they were ready, but because there was nothing left to break. As they were marched toward the deployment bays, Aaron realized something terrifying. He was no longer afraid of death. He was afraid of surviving, because whatever he had become on that ship was not human anymore. And the war had not even begun. Baptism of blood. The first battle did not begin with glory. It began with nausea. Aaron stood inside a troop transport, packed shoulder to shoulder with other guardsmen. The air was thick with the smell of fear, sweat oil, recycled breath. The transport shook violently as it entered the planet's atmosphere, metal screaming as friction burned against the hull. Somewhere above them, anti-air fire detonated. The ship lurched. Someone screamed. Someone vomited onto the floor. No one laughed. The red warning lights flashed. 30 seconds. An officer shouted. Aaron tightened his grip on his lasgun. His hands were steady, but his mind was not. His thoughts raced, jumping from one terrible idea to the next. He tried to remember his old life. The factory. The gray sky. It felt like a dream. The transport slammed into the ground. The rear doors blew open, and hell rushed in. The sky was on fire. Thick black smoke rolled across the battlefield, broken by burning wreckage and shattered buildings. The air was hot, dry, and filled with ash. The ground shook with constant explosions. Aaron ran. He did not know where he was running. No one did. Orders were screamed through static-filled Vox units, overlapping, contradictory, meaningless. Officers pointed forward. Commissars shouted the same command again and again. "Advance! Advance!" The enemy was already there. Chaos forces emerged from the smoke, once human, now something else entirely. Their armor was twisted, fused to flesh. Their faces were stretched into unnatural smiles. Some laughed as they charged. Others chanted in voices that made Aaron's head ache. Lasguns fired. Red beams cut through the haze, hitting armor, flesh walls, doing almost nothing. The enemy kept coming. The man to Aaron's left was torn in half by a heavy weapon. His body spun through the air and landed in pieces. The man to Aaron's right dropped screaming, clutching his face as blood poured between his fingers. Aaron fired. He did not aim. He could barely see. He fired until the lasgun overheated and screamed in his hands. He fired because stopping meant thinking, and thinking meant panic. The ground was slick with blood. Bodies piled up quickly. Some moved. Some begged. Most were silent. A Chaos soldier charged directly at Aaron, swinging a chain blade that roared like a living thing. Aaron froze. The world narrowed. The blade filled his vision. A heavy shell hit the Chaos soldier from the side, ripping him apart. Pieces of armor and flesh sprayed across Aaron's chest. Aaron screamed. He kept screaming even after he realized he was still alive. There was no line, no formation, no strategy, only chaos. A commissar appeared through the smoke, coat flapping, bolt pistol raised. Forward. He screamed. The Emperor demands it. A guardsman stumbled backward, his leg gone below the knee. He was crying, dragging himself through the dirt. The commissar shot him without slowing down. The sound of the bolt round was louder than the battlefield, or so it seemed to Aaron. The body jerked once, then lay still. Something inside Aaron went cold. This was not a war. This was slaughter. Minutes blurred into hours, or seconds. Time lost meaning. Aaron reloaded again and again, his fingers moving automatically. He stepped over bodies without looking down. He stopped reacting to screams. They became background noise, like the machines in the factory had once been. At some point, the enemy pushed closer. Hand-to-hand combat erupted across the field. Lasguns became clubs, bayonets punched into armor gaps. Men fought with bare hands, teeth, anything. Aaron stabbed a Chaos cultist in the throat. The blade stuck. The cultist smiled as he died, blood bubbling from his mouth. That smile haunted Aaron more than anything else. A sudden explosion threw Aaron off his feet. He hit the ground hard. The wind knocked from his lungs. His ears rang. The world spun. He lay there, staring at the red sky, unable to move. Bodies fell around him. Boots crushed past his head. Someone stepped on his hand. He barely felt it. For a moment, Aaron thought this was it. Then a hand grabbed his collar and dragged him upright. An officer shoved him forward. "Get moving," he shouted. "You want to die here." Aaron almost laughed. He wanted to ask, "Isn't that the point?" But he ran. By the time the order to withdraw finally came, there were barely any guardsmen left to hear it. The battlefield was unrecognizable. What had once been a city was now a graveyard of ruins and smoke. Fires burned uncontrolled. The enemy had vanished back into the haze, leaving the Imperiums dead behind. Aaron collapsed behind a shattered wall, his chest heaving. His armor was cracked, his uniform soaked in blood, some of it his, most of it not. He looked around. No familiar faces remained. The few survivors stared into nothing, their eyes empty. One man laughed uncontrollably, rocking back and forth. Another sat quietly, holding his own severed arm like a child's toy. Medica teams arrived hours later. They moved quickly, efficiently. Those who could still fight were marked and left where they were. Those who couldn't were examined. Some were treated. Some were shot. Aaron watched a medic shake his head at a wounded guardsman. The man begged, tears cutting through the grime on his face. "Please," he whispered. "I can still fight. I can still." The bolt pistol ended the sentence. Aaron looked away. That night, the survivors were gathered and counted. Out of thousands, a few hundred remained. An officer addressed them. "You held the line," he said. "Your sacrifice bought the Imperium time." Time for what? No one asked. Aaron realized something then, something terrifying. The Imperium did not care if worlds were lost. It only cared that the war continued. That night, Aaron could not sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the smiles, the blood, the commissar's pistol. He felt different, not stronger, hollower. The next morning, replacements arrived, fresh recruits, clean uniforms, fear in their eyes. Aaron recognized the look. He wanted to warn them. He said nothing, because he knew it wouldn't matter. The first battle was over. The war was just beginning. And Aaron understood the final lesson of being a soldier in Warhammer 40K. You are not meant to win. You are meant to die slowly, so others can fight a little longer. And if you survive, you will wish you hadn't. Aaron woke up screaming. At least, he thought he did. No sound came out. His throat felt dry and broken, as if he had been screaming for days. His eyes opened slowly, painfully, and the first thing he saw was white light, too bright, too clean. This was not the battlefield. For a moment, hope flickered. Then the pain arrived. It came all at once, crashing through his body like fire. Every nerve screamed, every thought shattered. Aaron tried to move, but his body did not respond the way it should have. Something was wrong, very wrong. He tried to lift his left leg. Nothing happened. Panic surged through him. He forced himself to look down. The leg was gone. Where flesh should have been, there was metal. Thick, brutal machinery bolted directly into his body. Thick cables disappeared into his thigh. The metal limb ended in a crude mechanical foot, stained dark with old blood. Aaron tried to scream again. Still no sound. A figure leaned into his vision. Red robes, metal limbs. A skull-like mask with glowing lenses for eyes. A tech priest of the Adeptus Mechanicus. "Subject is awake," it said in a voice that was not entirely human. Pain response within acceptable parameters. Acceptable. Aaron felt tears run down his face. He tried to ask what had happened. He tried to ask if he was going to live. He tried to ask if he was still himself. All that came out was a weak, broken sound. The tech priest did not care. "You sustained catastrophic damage during combat," it said calmly. "Your biological limb was inefficient and removed." Removed, not lost, not injured, removed. "You have been improved." Aaron passed out. When he woke again, the pain was still there, but different, sharper, constant. It no longer came in waves. It was simply part of him now. He was no longer in a medical ward. He was in a processing hall. Rows upon rows of metal tables filled the chamber. Guardsmen lay on them, strapped down, some unconscious, some awake and screaming. Servo arms descended from the ceiling, cutting, drilling, injecting. There was no mercy here, only function. Aaron tried to turn his head. He saw a man 2 tables away convulsing as his arm was removed. No anesthetic. The tech priest overseeing the procedure chanted Binharic prayers as blood sprayed across the floor. The man begged. No one listened. Another guardsman nearby had his eyes replaced. Thick cables were pushed directly into his skull. He screamed until his voice gave out. When the procedure ended, his face went slack. He did not scream again. Aaron realized then what this place was. This was not a hospital. This was a factory. And soldiers like him were the raw material. Days passed, or weeks. Time had no meaning inside the Mechanicus facilities. The lights never dimmed. The air smelled of oil, blood, and burned flesh. Aaron was modified again and again. A metal brace was fused to his spine to correct inefficient posture. Injectors were implanted into his veins to flood his system with combat stimulants when ordered. A data port was hammered into the side of his skull, allowing direct command input. Each procedure took something away, not just flesh, memory, feeling, fear. He stopped crying at some point. He wasn't sure when. Pain became background noise, like the engines of the warship had once been. His thoughts slowed, sharpened, narrowed. Eat when told, stand when told, kill when told. That was enough. He was returned to his unit weeks later, or what remained of it. The guardsmen looked different now. Many had metal limbs. Augmented eyes glowed faintly in the dark. Some had half their faces replaced with steel. One man spoke only in short, monotone phrases, his emotions stripped away by neural conditioning. They did not talk about what had happened to them. Talking was pointless. One night, as they rested in a ruined hab block, a guardsman whispered something Aaron would never forget. "I died on that table," the man said softly. "This thing wearing my body just doesn't know it yet." Aaron did not respond, because he knew the man was right. Combat resumed soon after. Aaron noticed something terrifying during the next engagement. He felt less. When he fired his last gun, his heart did not race. When he saw men die, his stomach did not turn. When his metal leg crushed a body beneath it, he felt nothing at all. The implants adjusted his reactions, dampening panic, suppressing fear, making him efficient, making him empty. A commissar praised his performance. "Good," the man said. "You fight like a machine now." Aaron wanted to be offended. He wasn't. That realization scared him more than anything else. Not all the wounded returned. Some were taken deeper into the Mechanicus facilities and never came back. Others returned changed. There were whispers of servitors, once human beings lobotomized and turned into mindless machines, used for labor, for targeting, for ammunition loading. One day, Aaron recognized a servitor loading shells into an artillery piece. It had the face of a man he had trained with. The eyes were gone. The mouth hung open uselessly. Aaron froze. The tech priest noticed. That unit was repurposed after displaying psychological weakness, it said. Its former identity is irrelevant. Aaron looked away. That night, he dreamed of metal crawling beneath his skin, of waking up without thoughts, of becoming useful forever. The fear returned then, not of dying, but of continuing, of surviving long enough to be completely erased. The final procedure came without warning. Aaron was strapped to a chair. Cables connected to the port in his skull. Data flooded his mind, battle protocols, threat recognition, obedience routines. He screamed inside his head as memories slipped away, faces vanished, names disappeared, even his own felt distant. When it was over, the tech priest nodded. Subject integrity remains sufficient, it said. Combat readiness improved by 37%. Aaron stood up. He moved smoothly. Perfectly, too perfectly. He realized something horrifying in that moment. If he died now, there would be nothing left to mourn. Because the person he had been, the factory worker, the frightened recruit, the man who hoped, was already gone. The Imperium had not saved his life. It had extended his usefulness. And in doing so, it had taken everything else. As Aaron marched toward the next battlefield, metal foot striking stone in perfect rhythm, one thought echoed faintly in the remains of his mind. Death would have been kinder. The final deployment came without ceremony. No speeches, no prayers, no promises. The order arrived through the data port in Aaron's skull as a burst of cold information. Coordinates, enemy classification, estimated survival time, less than 1 hour. Aaron felt no surprise. He stood with his regiment inside a massive landing vessel, metal boots locked to the deck as the ship shook violently. Around him, the other guardsmen waited in silence. These were not the fresh recruits from the early days. These were survivors, or what passed for survivors. Some stared blankly ahead, eyes glowing faintly with augmentation light. Others muttered broken prayers. A few simply stood still, as if already dead. No one talked. Talking required memories. Aaron barely had any left. The red warning lights flashed. Enemy designation Tyranids. That word alone carried terror deeper than any Chaos warband. Tyranids did not hate. They did not laugh. They did not torture for pleasure. They consumed. The ramp slammed down. The world outside was alive, not metaphorically. Literally alive. The ground pulsed beneath Aaron's metal foot as he stepped out. Organic structures rose into the sky like twisted towers of flesh and bone. The air was thick, wet, and buzzing with distant screeches that vibrated inside the skull. The sky was blocked by massive bio, ships drifting overhead like floating organs. The planet was already dead. The Guardsmen were just late. The Tyranids came immediately, not in waves, in floods. Creatures poured over the terrain, claws, teeth, chitin, endless hunger. Smaller beasts swarmed first, throwing themselves at the guard lines, dying in piles just to slow them down. Aaron fired. His lasgun burned hot in his hands, shots punching holes through alien flesh. It did not matter. For every Tyranid that fell, 3 more took its place. Guardsmen screamed as they were dragged down, armor torn open, bodies ripped apart in seconds. Some were eaten alive, others were cocooned, screaming as living matter wrapped around them. Aaron advanced. He did not know why. He no longer questioned orders. A massive Tyranid beast rose ahead, towering over the battlefield. It roared, a sound that was not sound, but pressure, pain, command. The guardsmen broke. Some tried to run. The commissars were gone. No executions this time. No need. The Tyranids did what bolt pistols never could. Aaron fought on. A claw punched through his chest, ripping through flak armor and flesh alike. Pain flared, sharp and brief. His implants flooded his system with stimulants. His heart kept beating. He stabbed the creature with his bayonet until it stopped moving. Then another hit him from behind. His metal leg was torn off completely. He fell. The swarm covered him. This was it. This was death. But death did not come. The Tyranids dragged him away from the battlefield, deeper into the living structures of the hive. He tried to fight, but his body no longer obeyed properly. His limbs were damaged, his systems failing. They pinned him to the ground with organic restraints. He waited for teeth, for claws, for the end. Instead, they studied him. Organic tendrils pierced his skin, probing, tasting. His thoughts blurred as chemicals flooded his body. He screamed, but only inside his head. The Tyranids were not killing him. They were learning. Memories surfaced against his will. The factory, the warship, the commissar's gun, the metal table, the screaming. The hive mind drank it all. Pain, fear, loyalty, hatred. It wanted to understand the Imperium, and Aaron was the sample. His flesh was opened carefully, not torn, not rushed. He felt everything. They removed organs and replaced them with living conduits. His bones were softened, reshaped. His nervous system was stretched, connected to something vast and incomprehensible. He realized the truth too late. The Tyranids did not just consume bodies. They consumed experience. Aaron was no longer a prisoner. He was a bridge. His thoughts echoed outward, swallowed by a presence so large it crushed his sense of self. He felt billions of minds brushing against his own, indifferent and endless. He was still conscious. That was the horror. Time lost meaning completely. There was no darkness, no sleep, no escape. His identity dissolved slowly. First his name, then his memories, then the concept of being an individual at all. But the pain remained. The hive mind kept that, because pain taught efficiency. Somewhere far away, Imperial sensors detected the Tyranid fleet adjusting tactics, learning, adapting. They never knew why. Imperial records later listed the battle as a failure. Entire regiments lost. Acceptable losses. Aaron was marked as killed in action. The truth was worse. His body became part of a greater organism. His thoughts reduced to impulses. His suffering recycled endlessly as biological data. He could not die. Death required an ending. This had none. In the final fragment of thought that could still be called his own, Aaron understood the cruelest truth of Warhammer 40K. The Imperium does not protect humanity. The enemy does not need to hate it. Between endless war and endless hunger, there is no mercy, only consumption. And somewhere within the Tyranid swarm, something that used to be a man continued to exist, not alive, not dead, but aware, forever.